Today I'm going to talk about a topic that I think touches many of the lives of people who suffer from PTSD or complex PTSD, and that is the topic of being estranged from abusers in our lives, whether they be family relationships or outside the family. But estrangement most commonly is associated with a family relationship and the need for distance at minimum, and in some cases it might be ending the relationship altogether. I know this is a topic that a lot of people don't feel is spoken about enough, especially if you are a sibling who has chosen, or maybe it wasn't chosen by you, but by the other person, that there's an estrangement, distance in the relationship, and some of the common things or feelings and experiences that could happen while that's playing out. And in particular today, what I want to talk about is why a parent in this situation won't apologise for the reasons behind the estrangement. Now, many people, when they find out from you that you don't have a relationship with your mum or with your dad or whoever it may be in the family, as an example. So for this example, I'll talk about a parent. They might, as a reflex, ask the question, what happened? And I suppose that presupposes that there's some big event which has caused a rupture in the relationship. But for many people who are estranged from a parent or another family member, that's often not the case, that it is one big event. It's more complex than that. What leads to that decision, that rift? And it's often not spoken about with a lot of complexity, when actually a lot of complexity exists in that situation. So I'm hoping to speak a little bit about apologies in regards to a parent that you might be estranged from, if this applies to you. So when your parent can't or won't apologise, it's not because they were always right. It's because they're incapable or unwilling to admit that they were wrong. And if you grew up with a parent that refuses to apologise, as an adult you might struggle yourself with apologies. You might over apologise, or you might feel like everything is your fault. And you might also be left wondering, why can't they just admit it and apologise to what they did? It might be so obvious to you and cause a lot of rage and resentment and confusion and lots of feelings about why they can't just admit it. And maybe there'd be a chance of repair there for your relationship. You know, hundreds of people have told me that their relationship with their parents could have been saved if they would just own up to what they did and apologise. So I'm going to cover a few theories on why a parent doesn't apologise or own up to mistakes or admit that we're wrong. These are just theories based on my experience. So I'll lay them out and you can have a think on what you identify with in your own situation, what you suspect may be at play. So the first one that usually comes to mind on this topic is having low self-worth. People who refuse to apologise often have an extremely low self-worth. They've got very fragile egos, so they can't really absorb the blow of admitting that they were wrong. So they did not learn how to apologise. People who are raised in homes where apologising is seen as a weakness, or where healthy apologies just weren't modelled at all, they might struggle with apologising themselves, because admitting that they were wrong is too painful. And that's not to excuse or, excuse away or glaze over the fact that they should, but more a perspective behind it. This is not my explanation isn't an attempt to get you to forgive them, but more to explain what could be happening underneath for that parent in this example. If admitting that they're wrong is too painful, the shame is such a powerful emotion that some people would rather lose everything in their life rather than admit they were wrong. To you and I, that might just not make any sense. But that is genuinely how some people live their lives, whether they realise it or not. So they can't separate their actions from who they are, people with a fragile sense of self, they often believe that if they admit doing something bad, that means that they are bad as people. So they can be uncomfortable with the emotions that arise when apologising to someone. Some people might avoid apologising to escape any feelings of anger or sadness or other threatening feelings. They might have grown up with a mother or a father that's always knows best messaging. Parents, mum, dad always know best. Some parents are led to believe that apologising to their child makes them inferior or weak as a parent. So in an attempt to maintain their perceived position of superiority, they will withhold any apologies because it's seen to be inferior or weak. Either way, they're not sorry. Some people genuinely believe that they did their best and that they were not wrong. Nothing you say will change that opinion if that's the case. And honestly, they're better off not apologising if they're not actually sorry, because I'm sure that would do more damage for you hearing an apology that is not actually meant or authentic on behalf of the other person. So if they are not willing to change their behaviour, if someone feels like their apology will require them to change, they may avoid apologising to avoid changing or being held to a new standard. And that is often why you will be in the experience of having a parent who never admits they're wrong because of the reasons that I've outlined. So I hope for those of you who are estranged that you at least feel a little bit more seen by this video. And if this is helpful for you, I can make more videos on this topic with more insight. But for those of you who are estranged, I see you. I understand the complexity and the pain for making that decision or the decision being made for you in a way that you haven't chosen. And I hope that this sheds some insight, not as a way for you to change how you feel about the situation if that doesn't feel right for you, but more just to offer some insight and food for thought and hopefully comfort that it is not anything to do with you. Have a good week.